Hey, welcome back traders for another back testing session. So here I have the NASDAQ pulled up and we're going to be back testing the 25th to the 29th. It's going to be the last week of March, so we're going to finish off the month. And at the end, I'll take a look at the monthly stats. Now you'll notice that the 29th is a holiday, so it'll probably just be Monday through Thursday for this week. Right now it's set on the 22nd, and just taking a look at the daily chart, you can see that we are kind of just grinding up very slowly. It's nothing too exciting, but as you can see right here, this swing low, if you look at all the daily swing low, this was the last time we took sell side liquidity by going underneath this low. So that is why I have this projection up here. Now we've already reached the projection. So what am I looking for this week? I'm going to highlight this large daily fair value gap. As long as we're above this fair value gap or we stay in the upper half of it, I'm gonna remain bullish. If we start going beneath this fair value gap, I'll look for this to be inversion, and if we can see signs of inversion, then I'll be short bias, looking for this low and of course these equal lows. So here on the 1 hour chart, it is March 25th. This is going to be the Monday. Now because we are wanting to see whether or not this fair value gap will hold up as support or if it's going to trade down through it and use it as resistance, I don't really have a good sense of the market direction right now. So probably just want to wait for the market to give me some sort of a direction. So probably not going to be very eager to get into a trade today. Now zooming in, we can see that the market already took out the buy side. This happened at 1 o'clock on the Friday. We went up into this 1 hour fair value gap, the SIBI. Then we slowly grinded down, took out the sell side here, and we're still in the upper half of the daily fair value gap. I want to see some sort of support, like displacement to the upside. I want to see some bullish fair value gaps. If we can get above all these down candles, that's also a change in the steady delivery. So here on the 15-minute right now, I'm not looking for any shorts. If anything today, I'm going to be looking for longs. My target would be this high here. It went back into the 1 hour SIBI before. If we start getting a market structure shift above this high, I guess I can look for this high as well. I mean, I'll mark it out, but I really just want to look for this high that was traded back to that 1 hour SIBI. So far walking through it, 8:30, nothing exciting. Let's see what 9:30 has to bring. I'm looking for a sweep of the sell side like we have right here. Now I want to see displacement to the upside. So above this high, if we can trade above all these down candles right here, that will also be pretty good. And I would consider maybe taking a long for this right here. I'm not sure, do I want to wait for a confirmation or just take the first fair value gap? I think we are heading down even lower, but I think we want to go above all these down candles. And now I'm thinking about looking for a confirmation fair value gap to get into. Okay, we do have a shift right here, changing the state delivery, and we have a fair value gap here. But with this being such a big range, like 50 points or so, I want to see price come down and confirm this and give me a confirmation fair value gap to get back into, because we could always just like take out this high, go back into this inefficiency and drop even lower. So I want to be a little bit patient and just see if we have confirmation. Okay, so I like how we're staying in the upper half of this daily fair value gap. We didn't come back into this large fair value gap, but as you can see, let me zoom in, we do have a smaller fair value gap here that it did pull back into and then displaced again, giving us another fair value gap. So I'm going to go ahead and try to take this one. Now, if I have my entry up here at the high of that fair value gap, it's only going to give me enough risk for one contract before going over my 1% risk. So what I'm going to do is take one contract here, and then if price drops down to about half of that fair value gap, I'm going to enter another one. And with both these combined, that the average is going to give me that 1% risk that I'm looking for. Now here we go. There is a potential that we create a fair value gap here. I believe if we have a fair value gap here, I can still take one contract here and be under my 1% risk. But if I do that, I'm just going to take one contract and that's pretty much it. No ads. So if this fair value gap does form when this candle finishes forming, I'll go ahead and take one entry at the high of this fair value gap. I'm still going to have my risk down here because it could retrace back into this one and into the order block. So that fair value gap did end up forming. I'm going to go ahead and put my entry here on the first fair value gap. I'm hoping it just wicks me right in and then head for the target from the this target right here to my risk. That's going to give me at least a 1-1. So that's going to be good enough for now. So let's just go ahead and see how this plays out. Okay, so 1035, it did come down, take my entry. It could still come back to this fair value gap. It could come back to the order block, but I have my risk under here that is going to be 3 PD arrays of protection. Now I'm wanting to see price just basically just run up to my partial. I don't really want to see any more retracements from here. So we do get a little bit more retracement, but we are starting to run. I can see one fair value gap here and then potentially another fair value gap. And if it takes out this high, I'm thinking that I may want to go ahead and put my stop to break even. With this retracement, this displacement up, I don't really see price coming back into here. I want to see it running for this high. So we did consolidate for a little bit, coming back into this fair value gap. And we did go above this high. So I want to see price run for this high really quickly. And I think right now I'm going to go ahead and just give myself a little bit of protection and place my stop to break even. You can see that we developed a fair value gap here as well. So I'm going to say that this fair value gap is going to protect us from getting stopped out, and we go and run for that partial. Okay, so 1215 didn't quite work out. It did come back and stop me out, pretty much break even, only a little bit in profit, but I am glad that I did this. It could come back and take out this low you see and go back into this fair value gap. And with the time being 12:15, I don't really want to sit through any more than I have to. So pretty much my day is done. I still think it could come up and take this high, but maybe in the afternoon session or maybe over lunch. We'll take a look at the end of the day price action. So looking at the end of the day, you know, maybe it was a little premature moving my stop loss up. We did come back down, didn't quite get to my entry. I was in profit this whole time, and then price just slowly grinded up through the lunch period. And then at 2 o'clock, it ran up for that buy side target that I was looking for. But like I said before, because of the time, I did not really want to, you know, sit through all of lunch and maybe look for the afternoon to take this out. So I went ahead and just put this because I wanted to just see a run and get my profit really quickly. So anyways, but it did happen. And then after taking out the buy side, we did start coming back down into this upper consolidation range right now. And now let's go ahead and move on to the next day. But I really like how we just remain in the upper half of that daily fair value gap. So going forward, I'm going to keep my bullish bias. I'm going to be looking for this high, and I'm going to look for that high back at that 1 hour SIBI. Tuesday morning, I am looking at the 1 hour chart. We already took out this high, so that is gone, but we're looking for this high when it poked into that 1 hour SIBI. Looking back down here, there is not really any inefficiencies on the 1 hour until we get down here. So if we do drop down here, I want to see this hold as support, although we may not even drop down there before taking out this high. Here on the 5 minutes, so since we're so close to our target, I'll be willing to take a trade if we go and just sweep the lows and create the first fair value gap. I'll be willing to take the first bullish fair value gap up to try and see if we can hit our target, although we can potentially get stopped out and price can come back down to that 1 hour inefficiency. So here at 8:45, price did come down to take out these lows, and it actually did drop down to that 1 hour and finish 1 hour busy. So this is going good so far. I like how the bodies of these 5 minute candles just stopped at the high of that fair value gap. Now what I want to see is I want to start seeing price going up with a fair value gap. If we can have a fair value gap and go above this down candle, I'll be willing to take the very first one. Otherwise, if we have a fair value gap, I want to see confirmation on a second one before entering. So basically, I'm looking for a change in the state delivery here. So price didn't do too much until 9:30. We went down, took out the sell side a little bit before 9:30, and then at 9:30 we wicked down one last time to take out any sell side that is remaining. and we started going up. And I think if you see this wick right here did go above the opening price of this candle, so there is a change in the state of delivery. We do have a potential fair value gap here. Now I'm going to zoom in. There's also a volume imbalance, and we can also see 50% of this wick as well. So I think, let me go ahead and see what the risk is for this entry. So if I go ahead and put my entry here at the high of the fair value gap with my risk down here, I do like how the risk is below that 1 hour fair value gap. So that is also really nice. But anyways, with the risk here, this is only going to give me enough for one contract. If I do two contracts, I'll be above that 1% risk just by a little bit. So just like yesterday, what I'm going to do is take one contract here. And if it can give me a little bit cheaper price, let's say close to half of this fair value gap. Now remember, this fair value gap is not done forming. I'm only taking this if we form a fair value gap. And I will take two contracts at the high of the fair value gap if it does, give me a cheaper price where I could take two contracts and stay under a 1% risk. But anyways, this is the plan. I'm going to enter one, maybe one, enter another one at 50%. And now I'm looking for this as my target. Okay, so as you can see, no fair value gap has formed. We just went down, closed the fair value gap completely. Now, there is a small volume imbalance. I mentioned this earlier. You could potentially try to take an entry at this volume imbalance, but that is not part of my model, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to wait until we can see a confirmation fair value gap. Basically, I'm looking for another fair value gap to the upside, and I'll take the next one. So price is rallying now. As you can see, if you did take that volume imbalance, it would have been working out pretty nice in your favor. We did start going up, created a fair value gap here. So currently my entry is down here. There's a potential for another fair value gap here. If this does form, I'll have my entry up here at the high, and my risk is still going to be down here. But don't know if this fair value gap is going to form or if it's going to come down. If it does come down, I hope it takes me in. And of course, I am looking for that as my target. All right, so that fair value gap did not form. You can see here the high price. If you look up here, the high price is 592, and the low price of this one is also 592. So could potentially be an immediate rebalance, although we did get a huge wick down going for my stop. Basically, this would have been pretty scary, but it did not hit the stop just yet. We did rally up. 10 o'clock may have some news that will start going for the downside. But anyways, I went ahead and entered into this fair value gap. It did wick down to take me in. So I was able to get 3 contracts. I'll just show you right now on the spreadsheet. Here we can see that I have 3 contracts at this entry price with this is my risk. And that is going to give me a 0.97. So that's under that 1% risk. So I am in long, looking to take my first partial up here, although I may consider taking one off up here because it could just take out this high. I don't know, maybe I'll take a partial off of one of these highs. We'll see. But if I was in a real trade right now, I will be taking a measurement of this lower wick. This was a pretty big lower wick, and I want to see price stay above 50% of this wick. I don't want to see it start trading down below it. That would not be a good sign. So I just want, it could tap it, it could even wick through it, but I don't want to see a closure below here. And then I want to start seeing acceleration to the upside. If it takes out this high, may consider taking a partial and may consider just moving my stop loss. I kind of want to see what the next few candles have to show. Okay, so unfortunately, the next candle was not in my favor. It just came down for my stop. We went back into that 1 hour BISI, and now we took out the day's low. We look like we may be heading even lower. So I'm gonna go ahead and chalk this up to a loss. Let me go ahead and enter in the spreadsheet, and we'll see what the rest of this morning has to bring. Not sure if I want to keep going long because of, I see we went up, but this move down here at 10 o'clock was pretty dramatic. So we could be heading for lower prices. And let me just see it. Do we have, I guess we could be aiming for this low and this low if we decide to take a short. So I like how price is coming back up. It's retracing back into this big drop. Now I'm not gonna be able to take a trade into here. What I want to see is I want to see confirmation, because this big drop, it took out sell side below here, took out the sell side below here. It did not take out this one, right? You can see how it barely went below or went to it, right? Creating relative equal lows. So I'm gonna be aiming for this one. However, I want to see a confirmation fair value gap. So we are back into this SIBI, but I want to see one more SIBI, and then I'll take the very next SIBI. So it is 12:15. My time window is closed. You can see that we went back up, and then we just went to the upper half of this 1 hour fair value gap. So it could potentially be a reclaimed fair value gap should this hold. As you can see here, no SIBIs, so I did not have a setup. I think, you know, for the PM session, it can go either way. It can use this as a bounce up to the buy side, or we can start using this inefficiency to go to the downside. Either way is past my time window. Let's see what the end of the day looks like, and then we'll move on to the next day. So you can see the end of the day, we are going to the downside. Now, there was a small fair value gap here. If I was watching around this time, I could potentially enter, although that was through the lunch hours, so wouldn't be terribly excited for that either way. In the PM session, we just started dropping lower after 3 o'clock, and we are back into, remember that green fair value gap is the daily fair value gap that I'm looking for. As long as we remain in the upper half, I'm going to remain bullish. If we start trading to the lower half or start trading below it, then I may flip over to the bearish side. Wednesday morning, on the 1 hour chart, you can see that we're still in the upper half of that daily fair value gap. So I'm going to be slightly bullish here, and I'm looking at this SIBI. Okay, this is the 1 hour SIBI that was created yesterday at 3 o'clock. I marked it out, and I'm thinking that this could be used as an inversion fair value gap. You can see that we kind of just consolidate in it a little bit, but this morning around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, we went to the upper half of it, and so far the bodies have remained in the upper half. So this could be used as an inversion fair value gap. I'm gonna be bullish, and I will be aiming for these relative highs up here. This will be my first partial, maybe my ultimate target, but if I do have a long on and I have extra contracts, I'll try to see if I can hold to maybe the midpoint, or even for these highs up here. We do have relative highs as well. Here at 8:30 on the 5-minute chart, we can see that we've been just consolidating in the upper half of that 1 hour fair value gap. Also, this is within that daily fair value gap as well. Now, watching this low to see if we can get below that low. We don't have to, doesn't really matter, because I want price to stay in the upper half of the 1 hour fair value gap anyways. So far, we are looking at a displacement to the upside. Now, if I can get a confirmation fair value gap, I may be willing to take that, although I don't really like how we have relative lows here. Like 9:30 could come, and we can definitely take both of these out. So I may just wait until 9:30. Okay, almost 9:30. I like how we have been going up away from this 1 hour SIBI. I like how we just stayed in the upper half in the very last moments, and now we are rallying away from it. There's still this big fair value gap here. We've used this fair value gap a couple of times. So 9:30, what I'm looking for is actually price to come back down, either to this inefficiency or come and sweep below here. But I don't want to see it, you know, go and close down. Just kind of like wick down just to take some more sell side. And then the very next fair value gap that forms to the like a bullish fair value gap, I want to go ahead and take that and see if I can get that target up there. 9:30 came, and we had a pretty dramatic drop. So I zoomed out to the 15-minute chart to see what is going on. We did rally up, and I saw that we took out the buy side up here. There was also a 15-minute fair value gap, and it dropped from there. So now I'm a little concerned that we may still be going to the downside. I want to give price a little bit more time just to see what it's going to do. Going back to the 5-minute, I want to see the sell side, these relative lows swept. Perhaps even this low, going back into this inefficiency. But I don't want to see price hanging out in the lower half of that 1 hour fair value gap for too long. I still want to see this as an inversion fair value gap, and I want to look for the buy side. But in order for that to happen, I want to see price go back up, create a fair value gap, come back down, confirm the fair value gap, and I'll take the confirmation fair value gap. But other than that, I don't really, I'm not really eager to get in long on this trade here. So we are a little bit before 10 o'clock. We went down to the low of that 1 hour fair value gap. We came back up into this 5-minute fair value gap, but also notice it's also the midpoint on that 1 hour fair value gap. So now it's turning into like a reclaimed fair value gap, and we are heading lower with another potential fair value gap. Remember, this candle is still not done forming. So zooming out, do we have any downside targets that we could aim for? We do. There is this low right here that is at 50% of the daily fair value gap. That could be the ultimate target. And then here will be a partial on the way. We already took this one out. We already took that one out as well. So I want to see a little bit of retracement and have price stay in the lower half of this 1 hour fair value gap. Now I'm flipping my idea to short since we are now below that 1 hour fair value gap. You can also see we kind of a breaker as well. High, low, higher high, displacement down. We came back up to that breaker using this candle right here. This could have potentially been a trade as well. I guess, you know, I haven't really been trading breakers. I've mostly been focusing on liquidity and fair value gaps. But I guess this was a potential trade that we could have taken, but alas, I missed it. I am going to aim for this one should I have enough risk. If I have the risk, it will be probably at the high of this, the body of this up candle. That will be my risk, and then my entry will be here potentially if this fair value gap remains. That's actually not too bad of a risk, about 35 points. So I will consider taking it if this fair value gap remains and we don't take out the sell side liquidity. Okay, so price just dropped way too quickly for me, never retraced back into my entry that was over here. So looking at this, probably a missed opportunity after taking out the buy side. We dropped down, creating a breaker with a fair value gap. That would have been a good setup. I could have taken this fair value gap and had my stop above this high. That will also give it an opportunity to come back into this fair value gap just at the low for like an institutional order flow or entry drill. But like I said, clicked through it a little too fast, didn't see it. But now looking back, I can see it looking back. So this may happen in your back testing. I would encourage you not to go back and fix it. I didn't see it. It just didn't happen. I was looking for long, so my mind didn't flip over to the short side quick enough. Anyways, we went ahead and took out the sell side already. Went back into 50% of that daily fair value gap. I think today might have been a missed opportunity. Probably no more trades for the rest of the morning, although I will go ahead and run through the rest of the price action. All right, so 12:15, price did nothing. It just consolidated after taking out the sell side that I marked out. It just consolidated. Now, looking back at it, the lesson for today is that I was able to, flip the direction and find the targets very quickly. The sell side targets, I was correct on that. I was just not quick enough to get an entry model in my head. So this would have been the perfect entry and would have taken off probably below this low, that low. Zooming out, you can see what I'm talking about. But for the rest of the day or the rest of the morning, did nothing but just consolidate at the lows, and this is also at 50% of that daily fair value gap. So nothing more I can do for today. Let's just go ahead and move on to the next day. Thursday morning, 8:15. You can see yesterday after we went down to 50% on the daily fair value gap, we just rallied back up into this inefficiency and consolidated pretty much at equilibrium. And you'll also know that is in the lower half of this SIBI. Now, I don't know really what to do for today. We could just use the SIBI to push down price even lower. So that is a potential for shorts. If we get above the SIBI, like you can see, we did sweep the sell side here at 5 o'clock. We went down to take out this low, and we still stayed within this inefficiency. So we could be using this as a stop on the sell side, and then we could be going up higher for those relative highs. I think that is the more favorable idea that I have. But in order for that to happen, we have to go back up above this 1 hour SIBI again. I know that happened on Tuesday, but I'm still going to continue to use it. And yeah, so I think that's what I'm leaning towards. But we need to start getting away from the lower half of that SIBI. 8:30, we have a huge wick to the upside, and then we came back down. We were kind of like at the beginning of the 8:30 open. So I don't know what this is all about. Kind of feels like a stop hunt to take out all the buy side. Now what I want to see is, I'm still gonna favor the longs, but what I want to see is price coming down perhaps to take out this sell side here. Don't really want to see this low get taken. I want to see maybe a sell side sweep here, and then I want to start seeing displacement to the upside. I want to see us leaving this lower half on the 1 hour CIBI. Just before 9 o'clock, you can see that we did come down to take out the sell side below these lows. Like I said, we did not take out this close, which is good, and we started seeing a little bit of displacement. There is a 5-minute fair value gap here that got tapped into a few times. No bodies in it, which is great. Now at 9:30, what I want to see is I don't really want to see 9:30 to come down and take the sell side again. It could. But what I want to see is a fair value gap get formed without taking out this high. If that can happen, I'll try and take that fair value gap and see if we can go for, well, those relative highs underneath that old 1 hour fair value gap. Okay, so 9:30, we did come down, take the sell side one more time. I don't really like this gap. You know, I think that's still fine. It's just now I'm looking for a shift in the market structure above this high. I want to see all of these down candles get overtaken. If we have a fair value gap, then I don't know. I may consider taking it, or I may want to wait for confirmation. Let's just take a look at the next few candles. Okay, I like to see this rally up. We have a change in the state delivery. We have a market structure shift up here. So low, high, lower, low, higher, high. We have a breaker here, although there is no fair value gap. There is a volume imbalance. Could try to take this volume imbalance. Like, I'm not going to do it because it's not part of the model. But I'm just saying, like, if it was just reading price action, you're going with the flow, you could try to take this and put your wrist like maybe down here for like kind of like a playing off of a breaker or so. That would be 20 or 30. It'll be 30 points of risk or so. But what I want to see is I want to see a fair value gap. So maybe I'll see a fair value gap somewhere here, and I'm hoping the risk is not going to be very much. That will allow me to go ahead and take an entry, and hopefully this high doesn't get taken out. It could, and I can still enter, but I will prefer this high not get taken out before we see a fair value gap entry. So the high was taken, but we did form a fair value gap here. I'm looking to take an entry here just to give it a shot. Now, I'm going to take my first contract here at 15.5. And then if we get a little bit lower price, I'll take another entry here at 5.12. And of course, once again, the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to get close to that 1% risk. I was actually very close, but a little bit over. So I'm just going to give myself a little bit of leeway here. And if I could just get one contract right if price doesn't come back up to this high. But if it does come back and gets me 2 contracts in, then I'll still be under that 1% risk. So that's the reason why I'm doing this. I know this video, I've tried to do this a couple of times. It's just all those instances, I was just very, very close to that 1% risk, but I was just a little bit above. So I want to get my risk under that 1%. So this is something you guys can do. You don't have to take the very high of the fair value gap. But for me, I want to have at least one entry at the high because that is part of the model. Let's go see if it even comes back for me. Okay, as you can see, the next few candles, we did hit both of those targets. So I am in. My average is going to be at, I believe, 513.75. Let me go ahead and just do the calculation. Okay, so you can see the average is 513.75. And if I go ahead and use that as my entry with my risk at 486.5, 2 contracts, that's going to give me under that 1% risk. So that's the reason why I went ahead and did this. So let's go ahead and see how this trade goes. Man, once again, got stopped out after all that calculation. Anyways, I am going to go ahead and try to see if there's going to be a second entry here. If we do get confirmation, I don't really like how we have a SIBI here. We got to start getting above the SIBI, maybe use it as inversion. If I start seeing something here, I could enter another trade using half the risk, of course. I'm still going to be looking for longs, and yeah, we'll just see how the rest of the morning action progresses. All right, so it is 12:15. Pretty much it did nothing, you know, just consolidated here in the middle of the range. So did see a fair value gap here, was waiting for confirmation, but you know, it was already like 12 o'clock by the time. It was not that great. You know, zooming out, see, after this high was taken, I guess, you know, price really didn't look that good anymore. If you zoom out to the 15-minute, you can see that this wick right here, we first went down, took out the sell side, then we went up to take out the buy side. So both the sell side and the buy side was already taken. Probably that should have given me the signal to be like more patient, to wait for confirmation. But I guess I was just a little eager to get in because, well, I don't know. I guess because I was wanting to see price go for those relative highs, you know. But anyways, we took another loss. This week was not that great, you know. Going back to the spreadsheet, we did take a couple of losses. Let's see here. So we had one break even, 2 losses. You know, the month of March was not very good. Our winning, I think we still finished positive. We have a 54% winning rate. Expected value was $31. Although, you know, the risk to reward was not really good because we have a average risk of 77. But overall, we were still positive for the month of March. Anyways, let's come back next time. We're going to start back testing April. We still have 9 more months out of the year, only a quarter of the way done, but we are chugging along. Make sure you like this video, subscribe if you haven't done so, and until I see you guys next time, safe trading.